Good morning, AGS. When I was 21, I was still living in my majestic hometown of Springfield, Missouri. I'd experienced many of its Midwestern splendors, and the world was my oyster. But frankly, you probably shouldn't eat oysters that far inland. That year, in a few short months, I'd managed to drop out of college. Don't worry, I went back. My girlfriend had broken up with me for one of my friends, and to both our chagrin, I also moved back in with my parents after a contentious multi-roommate learning experience. Things were going fantastic, and I was making great decisions. I'm not sure if it was being confined to the landlocked nightmare of the show-me state, the need to strike out on my own for a once-in-a-lifetime adventure, or my specific hatred of the winter months, but I did what anyone would do. Against all reasonable advice, I quit my job, took out all my savings, threw all my belongings in my car, and abandoned my hometown. It was just me, my 1995 Toyota Camry, and the open roads. Things were going fantastic, and I was making great decisions. Now, I had always known that deep in my heart that I belonged to the beach, so that's where I went. Pensacola, Florida was calling my name. And it was also the closest beach. The allure of some beach bum lifestyle, salty air, sun-kissed hair, and endless white sands were inexplicably alluring and too strong to overcome. I'll just camp at the beach and catch my food, I probably foolishly thought. Just in case this poorly planned life adventure seems seductive to any of you, at very least plan better than I did. I was alone in a new state 12 hours from home with nowhere to sleep, but in my car and with very little money. Forethought was clearly not my specialty. I was too proud to go home and too stubborn to ask for help. I was alone on a beach, just me, sand and stars, a growing sense of dread. Things were going fantastic, and I was making great decisions. Now, when you're scared and alone on a beach, you might start to try to distract yourself by thinking about things like sand. If you've ever been to the beach, or even better, you've lived by one, there is one truth that remains constant. There is sand everywhere forever, just little bits of broken down rock in your shoes, in your car, in your house. It's a fact of life, and there is so much of it, an impossible amount. In fact, scientists estimate that Earth contains 7.56 trillion sand dunes. That is 75 followed by 17 zeros. Did you also know there are more stars in the universe than grains of sand on all the beaches, all the sandbox, and all the deserts on Earth combined? Our universe contains at least 70 septillion stars, which is 7 followed by 23 zeros. Thus, for every grain of sand on Earth, there's about 10,000 stars. These stars are all dancing around the universe. It is estimated to be 94 billion light years across, so it's like really big. It's more than a bit concerning to think that a bunch of apes evolving over a few million years on a 4.543 billion-year-old rock we call Earth is rolling around space in an elliptical orbit around the near star, which is our sun, is 67,000 miles per hour. By comparison, the fastest bullets only travel at easily 1,800 miles per hour. So we're here, a bunch of evolved primates in a basketball gymnasium, was basically screaming expeditiously through space on a rock 37 times the speed of the fastest bullet, and all the while you're trying to figure out why you keep letting the arches you go on weird public tangents about sand and space. All of this was a lightly evasive way to lull you into a sense of anxiety for our next speaker. She is a fantastic artist in her own right, and will tell you how she overcomes some of her own apprehensions, because in a short time she will be leaving here and go on her own great adventure, and we all know she's going to do fantastic and make great decisions. AGS, it is my privilege to introduce Alexa Barrett.
Frogs, hair that's not in my head, escalators, and people. Some of these fears are reasonable, like frogs, hair, and stairs. I mean escalators. Stairs should not be able to move people. While brainstorming ideas for the senior speech, with my art therapist, she brought to my attention that I have a very interesting way of facing my fears. An example of this is when I was younger, I had a paralyzing fear of heights, which is a very unfortunate fear for an aerialist. I used to cry whenever I had to stand on a trapeze or do a drop on the aerial silks. I I started to realize that my fear of heights held me back from enjoying some aspects of my sport. One day, I went tubing with my best friend's family and a few of my other friends. After an exhilarating tube ride, we ended up at an area where people were allowed to cliff jump. Of course, my friends were 100% into taking the plunge, and I wasn't about to be the only one not doing it. As we walked up the winding path, my heart pounded and my hands shook. We got to the top, and my friends were arguing about who would jump first. Before my brain could even process what I was doing, my 10-year-old self was running past them and launching myself off the cliff. While I was dropping, it felt like I was completely weightless, like I was flying. After I hit the water and came back up, I realized I was no longer scared. I just wanted to do it again, 15 more times. Now I am the silk drop person on my aerial team, and I love heights and roller coasters. My approach to fears is basically throwing myself headfirst off a cliff into my fear. Although I'm good at facing my fears like heights, I struggle with not letting the fear of people and social situations consume my life. As I head to college, I realized that I might actually have to be able to leave my room and meet new people and make new friends without freaking out. I struggle with wanting to leave my room and make new friends out of fear of hypothetical social situations where I could embarrass myself. For example, I could faceplant, or even worse, have nothing to say, and there would be unbearable silence. This is a fear that I decided that I have to improve in order to be successful in college. Last year, I decided to do a study abroad in Italy with my 4 best friends, and where we would meet 30 strangers that I would spend every second with for 3 weeks. I wasn't too stressed because I was with my best friends, so I was taking baby steps. One of the biggest differences between Italy and America is the 3-hour-long meals. These meals made me connect with all the new people in my study abroad. One day, my friends decided that I would have to sit without them at dinner because I had been using them as a crutch. I instantly started crying, mostly from exhaustion from walking everywhere, but also from not understanding why I had to sit alone. They pointed out to me that one of the biggest reasons I wanted to go to Italy was to learn independence. To which I said the only reason I said that on my application was to get into the program. Obviously, I was just upset at the time. But as dinner approached, I was really nervous and I had no idea what to talk about. When we got to dinner, I found a seat near people I hadn't talked to much yet. After a few minutes of basically silence, I thought the fear I had vividly imagined was coming true. Until I started to ask people questions. By the end of dinner, I successfully participated in conversation without my friends. I did so well that I scared another student with my knowledge of Georgia Tech basketball to wear jackets. One of my friends even texted me from across the room to tell me how proud of me she was. By the end of the study abroad program, I'd made lifelong friends, and I could order gelato in Italian. This experience taught me that if I don't face my fears, I'll never leave the house, and I'll miss out on friendships and adventures that I could be having. And you don't want to miss out on Nutella and lemon gelato in Italy. However, some fears are healthy and protect us from doing dangerous things. Fear is kind of like a warning sign to be careful in whatever situation you may be in. Fear is like other basic emotions. It causes psychological reactions in our body. Fear starts in the brain and creates physical effects throughout our body to tell us how we should react in a dangerous situation. On an instinctual level, our body is preparing for us to fight or flee. Although having healthy fears is normal, when fear turns toxic and anxiety takes over, it can keep us from fully living our lives. According to the Mayo Clinic, anxiety is intense, excessive, and persistent worry and fear about everyday situations. Sometimes it can cause a person to experience an increase in heart rate, rapid breathing, and sweating. While anxiety and fear feel similar, anxiety is a reaction to our emotions versus danger and the environment. Some factors that can help create anxiety are genetics, brain biology, and stress. Fear alerts us to the presence of danger, whether that danger is physical or psychological. Having fears that hold us back from everyday activities make it hard to live life and do the things we want to do. According to Dr. Tim Legg, a psychiatric mental health nurse practitioner, the process of facing our fears is called exposure. Exposure involves gradually and repetitively going into feared situations until we feel less anxious. I try to repetitively throw myself into social situations that I find uncomfortable, whether that's getting a haircut on my own, or ordering in a restaurant, or even doing the senior speech right now. I think the most important part about facing our fears is celebrating the small successes and trying again if we fail. This is important because a little progress is better than no progress at all. I learned how making a little progress can go a long way when I first started driving. I was scared of going places I didn't know how to get to by myself. I would always call my parents whenever I was about to leave a location. I was terrified about getting lost. Many times, when I first started driving, I remember getting lost and calling my parents, yelling and freaking out about how I didn't know where I was going. Sorry, Mom and Dad. I thought I would never stop being scared of driving. I really wanted to quit and stay in my comfort zone. Instead, I continued to push myself and drive, even if it was just driving my brother to his best friend's house, where I knew for sure I wouldn't get lost. Eventually, after pushing myself little by little using the exposure method, I no longer felt the need to call my parents every time I had to leave a location. I was no longer scared of taking a wrong turn. I could even drive myself to school and back without it being a big deal. Months ago, I would not believe that I would one day drive my brother and his friends around while they're yelling in the back seat, making me miss turns, and blasting terrible music without getting stressed most of the time. Although I made progress, I still have a long way to go. As I head to college, I will challenge myself to embrace situations that scare me, such as getting involved with clubs, making friends, and exploring the new chapter of my life, knowing that at some point I'll get lost, but I will always find my way eventually. I will continue to push myself out of my comfort zone in order to make progress on